It's wonderful to have a chat to Jeff Brayley, social researcher at station sponsor McCrindle. They bring data to life, and you do that for leaders in business, in organisations, churches, community groups. Jeff, what is the data that leaders should be looking at as they look into the future?
Leaders should be using multifactorial data. It's all about variety and lots of different data sets. We want to help leaders become really powerful at impacting and shaping a positive future. And so futuristic thinking is what we want to encourage people towards. You also need to be thinking generationally, understanding how society is changing, and also be practical, not just theoretical. Leaders should have a vision for the future and a plan for today.
Now, generations are working side by side so much more. Do you have any data around that?
Absolutely. A whole report, and there's a great infographic on the generations at work right now. 4 generations in Australia, from Gen Zs aged 16 to 30, who are motivated and looking for accessible and approachable leadership, all the way up to baby boomers that are looking for proximity when looking for new work. They want something close to home. And so we've got a great infographic there available for leaders to engage and motivate their teams effectively.
Jeff, I've seen this treasure trove. It really is. You're giving full access for 7 days. So how can people actually get access to this?
You can get the 50 plus infographics, 40 plus reports, courses, all on mccrindle.com. Search McCrindle Plus and you'll find that 7-day free trial. And we hope it empowers a positive future for all of society.
Jeff, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Station sponsor McCrindle, and you can get all that at mccrindle.com.
Towards Understanding with Clayton Bielen values being a positive radio program for everyone. As we present today's episode, please accept this little ears warning. Some of the themes discussed may not be suitable for children.
They say, give me a child to the age of 7 and I'll show you the person that they'll become later in life. Well, this story, this podcast of Bill Sutcliffe is maybe the exception that maybe proves the rule, I'm not sure, but he's certainly the exception. You see, Bill's life up to the age of about 9 was one of poverty, of abuse. He fell into violence, into crime as a youth as well. But there was a moment of kindness that changed his world. There was a moment of, really, I suppose, God realizing and reshaping who he was. His upbringing wasn't what he became in the end. He now has not only helped thousands of people, but he has run multiple different missions around our country and doing incredible things to help underprivileged kids like himself. This is a great story. If you want to hear one of these ones and you want to hear more of these sorts of stories again and again, would you rate, review, would you share this story, share this podcast with as many people as you can? Helps get the algorithms up there and lets more and more people hear about it. All right, let's get stuck into this interview with Bill Sutcliffe, the author of the book, Driven. Thanks so much, Bill.
Thank you, Clayton. Look, I'm really pleased to be here as well, I must tell you.
Yeah. Bill, I think it would be completely reasonable to say that you have led one of the tougher lives of many people that I've even interviewed on this program, and I've interviewed a fair few of them. Is that how you look at your life before we start talking about it?
Well, true, on one side, but on the other side, just so privileged.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit, and I suppose we want to start actually as well, that we know that, as a rule, as we play this in this time slot, we're pretty comfortable that it's normally adults listening, but we are going to talk about some various things around abuse and even sexual abuse in this following little while. So if just a little ears warning as we do go forward before we have some conversations too. Bill, let's go back to your childhood, and we're going to then end up by talking about, just for everyone, an incredible ultra-marathon athlete, as well as a man who I would describe as an ultra-marathon giver into people's lives, which is how I would describe you as well on both fronts. So we're going to get to that. That's where we're going to land. But take us through a little bit of your pretty rough upbringing, especially as it came to male figures in your life. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Indeed. Yes, there was a rough start. My father was a violent alcoholic, and when I was still in the high chair, so I don't remember anything about it, but nevertheless, he, in the days of 6 o'clock hotel closing, he once too often came home late, and Mum had once again kept his dinner for him and got sick and tired of it, and he had been kicked out of the pub at 6 o'clock and went to a mate from there and drank on and came home quite intoxicated. Mum had thrown his meal out and realised now he got quite angry, picked up a knife and threw it at her and hit me instead. Hence, I have been, Clayton, a one-eyed Geelong supporter ever since.
Quite literally.
Quite literally.
But I mean, we laugh now, but I mean, that is a remarkable trauma for a 2-year-old to have a knife that was intended for their mum in your eye. You lost your eye, and I mean, that's, I suppose, a microcosm of the life that happened for you over the next, would it be fair to say, probably 10 years as well, where there was often drinking around, there was often a lot of violence around, there was often a lot of abuse that was occurring.
And sexual predators hanging around, yes.
Yeah. Was this something that was happening daily? Was this something that was weekly? What was it in that?
More weekends.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And all alcohol-induced as a rule?
Yes.
Yeah. As you go through that time and you reflect on it even now, what are the emotions that come up as you think about those times?
Well, look, I don't say I've been fortunate lightly, because I've been a bit different. I've been 55 years in the welfare and spiritual field, counselling street people and prisoners and special education students, many of whom came from backgrounds like mine. And whilst we speak of triggers in trauma that keep, in early years certainly, keep happening, they were constant, have been constant for me in counselling, for the last 55 years plus. So have not been able to avoid them, but have been able to, by the grace of God, go through them and encourage others to try and realise that, in fact, sometimes our worst experiences can be our best qualifications in assisting others who are going through the same things.
Yeah. And you've found that in terms of, as you've gone and done some of your work, that you've been able to just, I mean, as I've read the book, I know it's true, so I'm asking a bit of a set-up question, but where, you've been able to literally say, actually, I've been through something really similar. That's opened up doors for you to actually care and look after people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what has been so wonderful about it as far as I'm concerned, despite the undeniable extreme trauma, which I'm never away from and had to revisit so strongly in writing that autobiography that you have before you, whose title is Driven. And I have been driven, quite sincerely. I've been driven with a passion to be able to help others from my background get through what I've been getting through for a lifetime.
Yeah, exactly right. One of the things that I'm fascinated in there is that, and we talked about it too, that there was a lot of abuse that occurred from males in your world. It was your father there, stepfather. There was lots of beatings that occurred constantly. Stepbrothers that were around with the same thing. And even from that perspective of, it was a number of years you literally slept in sort of basically almost a dog kennel like in the backyard, where you also...
A vehicle trailer.
Vehicle trailer, which is where that sexual abuse did occur quite often, for 2 years.
Age 8 to 10.
Yeah, that's right.
And continued past that, and that's very interesting. I don't remember it past then, in actual fact. But my sisters, very recently, told me that they witnessed some of that past age 10, which is very interesting.
So here you are, not just being abused physically, sexually, you're being isolated out as you go too. And yet, despite all of this, a few years later you found the fact that you were able to start working with others who did start giving a few of those, hey, I'm actually going to believe in you, I'm actually going to help you, and you were able to actually trust them with that. That's the thing I'm quite fascinated by. How did you work through the idea of, okay, there's another male figure and they are actually believing in me? Was it something that was automatic that you just went, oh, thank goodness that they are? Or was there so much skepticism that you had to work through to actually trust somebody else who might even be believing in you for good reasons?
Look, there were so many unwitting mentors in my life. And I think I owe it to the first one, who probably paved the way for subsequent ones, which, because they were entirely males, I would have been very suspicious of and dubious of.
Yes.
But the first one was a business proprietor who I had been shoplifting from for a considerable period of time. And in those days of corporal punishment, when I was caught finally, a firm hand was placed on one of my shoulders, and I would have expected it for me to be savagely wheeled around and perhaps belted around the ears, or given a kick or two in the behind, and worse than that, dragged home to my stepfather particularly. Instead of that, I was gently wheeled around to look into the eyes and upon the face of amazingly understanding shop proprietor, who asked me how long I'd been doing this, and I fessed up pretty readily, I must tell you. But you know what he said to me?
What?
He said, "Son, you're good." First time anybody had told me I was good at anything for doing wrong.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Son, look, you're not on this planet to take from people. You know, we are here to give." He didn't say it's more blessed to give than receive.
Yes.
Anything spiritual, overtly, but there was just something different about him. His incredible understanding. Probably knew my background in a small country town, or in a small rural town, and so I'm sure that was the first seed sown. He said, "Look, you know, promise me, you won't steal. You'll endeavour to give where you can." And we shook hands. He said, "Look, you promise that. I promise I won't tell anybody about this." And he didn't, and I didn't again. And so that was the first seed, undoubtedly, from definitely an unwitting mentor, but an incredible mentor in my life, who told me I was good and in fact cunning and and intelligent for doing wrong.
What year were we talking about here?
We're talking about 1952.
Let's talk that through. There was other people who started over time, believing in you, whether they were helping you work on the farm, whether they suddenly started seeing in you, actually, you've got a bit of an athletic ability as well, whether it be footy or boxing or things like that. What did that start doing in you as more and more people started seeing something beyond what you'd just been told and experienced as you lived through that early part of your life?
Well, certainly building up confidence and self-esteem, and belief that perhaps there was a future.
Did that allow you to then take a little bit more steps into that believing yourself, and so therefore you could start exploring it? I think of the boxing story that is in here too, and clearly the confidence that you got once you realised, well, actually, I'm pretty good at this. As you went through, did it start translating to all areas in your life immediately?
Well, no, it didn't. In fact, it was a bit misguided, as positive as it was so far as it could be. That is, battering people's brains out, endeavouring to deal with your anger.
Yes.
And I owe a local policeman for that, who, again, knowing my background, put me in the boxing ring to try and tame that. It worked so far. But there's no question that behind the scenes of all of this, with the seeds that were being sown by other mentors along the way as well, and some of those were absolutely physical, and of course many stories are not driven, but one was of an alcoholic former circus strongman who was at the regular drinking parties. His nickname was Powder Monkey Jimmy, and he was the explosives man at a local quarry. You know what a powder monkey is, Clayton?
No, I'm unsure. I read the name. I thought it was very impressive, but I wasn't sure.
An explosive man.
Yes, great.
But using powder for explosives. He was using sticks of gelignite. And he, due to the trust that Mr. McWhirter, who was a businessman who first sowed the seed that I'd been shoplifting from in my life, Powder Monkey Jimmy, whilst others were getting blind drunk, and he was too, around his campfire outside the quarry where he was the explosives man in my hometown of Witchyproof, King of the Mountain area.
Yes.
If any are familiar with that. He started to sow different seeds into my life and incredible sayings which prevented me taking my own life on a couple of occasions, as did the seed sown by Mr. McWhirter, I might add. But he taught me, Powder Monkey Jimmy taught me strong man stunts that ultimately were to be immense help in prison work.
Yes.
Alongside of blokes who were very physical.
Yes.
And he taught me all sorts of tricks which I can't demonstrate on radio.
Sure.
I'm still the world champion Chinese wrestling.
Oh, wow.
In my opinion.
Yes, fair enough.
I might tell you. But all sorts of tricks he taught me,
yes.
Which instilled enormous confidence in me physically,
yes.
To be alongside of prisoners particularly. You know, I've been visiting prisons since from 1965 to 2006, in a number of different roles with Prison Fellowship International, Field Director and State Director of Prisons, and as a advisor to the Minister on Prisons and official visitor, allowed to roam around day or night into prison cells alone across all Victorian prisons, and to hear the complaints of both prisoners and prison officers, and probably one of the few, if not the only, outsider to play football, AFL, in the prison football team. At age 48, I was still playing in the prison football team up at Ararat. I had some phenomenal experiences there.
Yes.
But some of the physical stuff that Powder Monkey Jimmy instilled in me, with incredibly powerful proverbs such as, "You're no one's superior, but anyone's equal."
Yes.
And that was amazing. You know, that certainly did start to sow real seeds of, wow, you know, could this be one day? I didn't have sufficient resources in my life for that to occur, I might say, for that to last, because sport was a false god to me. It was like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yep.
You know, I would want to play one sport, and I cycled competitively first on the track, quite successfully. Not long distance, which is interesting. I then became a long distance runner.
Yes.
But on the bike, I couldn't sustain it. Boxed, weightlifted. I was due to contend a state title for weightlifting in Queensland before becoming a Christian, and then lifetime of ultramarathon running.
We're going to be back in a couple of minutes' time with the author of the book Driven on Towards Understanding, hearing more of Bill Sutcliffe's story.
Share your brand, your event, your message across 90 Christian radio stations and major cities in Australia and New Zealand by sponsoring Towards Understanding, hosted by Clayton Bielen. More than 210,000 people tune into Towards Understanding each week, and with just one sponsorship, you'll reach this immense engaged audience. Find out more about this exciting and unique opportunity now on the sponsorship page at positivemedia.com.au.
You've ended up involved in a whole host of various things, from city missions, both in Melbourne, Geelong, and other places. Melbourne, yes, and Ballarat, I should say, and other places around the country, to Prison Fellowship for a long time, for your own ministry that you've been involved in as well, and caring for others. Take us through, I suppose, the change in your life. How would you describe that moment of saying, actually, the rest of my life's actually about caring for others? Because it certainly seems like that's what you've said. Is that what you said to yourself?
Well, it was pretty simple, Clayton. The transaction that not so much a transaction, but a desire, being driven. There's no question about it. In fact, Jack Evans, who was a Presbyterian home missionary in Bev's hometown, who was taking a Bible discussion group for about 12, almost 12 disciples of teenagers, some from Anglican Church and other places, at the home of the manager of the sawmill I worked each Sunday afternoon. And when I became a Christian, Jack Evans, he was a former Second World War fighter pilot, who'd become a Christian late in life himself, and he was my sort of bloke, you know, rugged and authentic and down to earth
Yeah.
in his teaching. And he asked me a simple question, Bill, this is incredible. You know what the Lord has done in your life, and just like the Apostle Paul, or Saul as he was then, meeting you personally in a vision and getting hold of your life, and what do you think from here on? And an instant answer for me was, Jack, I just want to go back to the people of my background. Firstly, my abusers, my stepbrother. My stepfather was dying of cancer at the stage, and in fact he died before I could get to see him. But nevertheless was able to assure him in writing of my forgiveness. And so that was it, simply, for me, from that point on, a deep and absolute desire to go back to the people of my background and share with them, firstly, not uncommon with those who, Andrew and others who became Christians in the first the group of disciples under Jesus, who went home, to their brothers and brought them to Jesus as well. And so that, and Jack and his wife Ollie had been through the Melbourne Bible Institute, became Christians in later life, and they had a similar desire just to make up for lost time in their lives and see what help they could give. And so that was my desire, and then to get a bit of training towards doing that perhaps more effectively. Yep. And hence straight into ministry, really. From this occurred on the 5th of April, 64. I became a Christian. I was accepted into the Melbourne Bible Institute. I tell you, I had to learn English before I could learn Greek. My wife was a great teacher. My girlfriend then, Bev, now wife, was a great teacher. I had to be able to string my P's and Q's together a little bit better to go into Bible college. But my work experience there was in Pentridge Prison, so I was in heaven as far as my background was concerned already. So,
how many over the years do you reckon prison visits you've actually gone and done? Like, are we talking hundreds, thousands, 10,000s? What do you reckon roughly?
Hundreds.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, I had a prison round at one stage of all the prisons in Victoria.
Yeah, wow.
I think there were 13 at that stage. Yeah. So weekly that many.
Yeah, wow, that's
and
incredible.
Sometimes extra ones to boot if there's some special event I need to go for, something to do.
And God seemed to, for the rest of your ministry in that sense, and I'm assuming even now to today too, Bill, it seemed to put you in places where those who did have similar backgrounds to you, not just your family, but now others would be able to relate to you, people who were either doing it tough or had been abused themselves or were finding themselves on the wrong side of the road, the wrong side of the tracks sort of idea. It seemed to be that that was what was happening, that people were coming or you were being guided to be with them. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes not in the easiest of terms, I might tell you.
Yeah.
One particular prisoner who later became a Christian, I represented an abuser too. I was playing in the Ararat footy team at 48, and I was playing in the centre, and this guy and he's running rings around me, and but every time he got near me, instead of going for the ball, he went for me. He smashed my teeth and broke my ribs, and over the course of a number of games, in fact, they had to shift him out of prison finally. For his own sake, even his own teammates that were very serious about wanting to do him considerable harm. I have to call them off and say, "Come on, mate, I can handle this myself." But, no, Bill, he's pretty nasty, Pete. Yeah. Anyway, I had to follow him to another prison. I had to transfer him out of prison. Wow. Met him there, made a couple of attempts, and finally we were reconciled, and he became a Christian afterwards. So there were people, and he, of course, I represented. He was a victim of institutionalised abuse by a priest, and of course I represented one. And
yes.
So I didn't blame him for a moment when I found out. But anyway, but many instances like that where the Lord did just bring people across my path from my own background. And of course, the wonderful thing is, and it's easy to say this in retrospect, But it's true along the way as I look at it. Darren Alcott, what's it?
Dylan Alcott, yep.
Dylan.
Yeah, that's right.
Our Paralympic said upon his retirement, the best thing ever happened to me was my disability. Now, I don't think I consider myself to ever be disabled just because I'm one-eyed and I'm supported, literally. Yes. But nevertheless, I'd no sooner arrived in Ballarat at 72 than a well-meaning lady, Christian lady, visited me and said, "Oh, Bill, God sent me to tell you that if you really believed in me, I'd give you a new eye, and you wouldn't need a prosthetic eye." And I was a bit surprised by that because I hadn't thought about it, to tell you the truth. I'd been enjoying the ride with my eye, and how God had used it I hadn't even thought about, but I did after a bit of an irony in that. She's wearing glasses and tripped on our veranda as she's going out. It's the pot calling the kettle black here. Anyway, that's another story. But I thought of the wonderful way God had used my eye, because most guys in prison I was working alongside of or playing pool with or playing footy with didn't know I had an artificial eye.
Yes.
So I used to bet them a packet of smokes. Didn't smoke them, I tell you, but that was a currency in prison. I said, I tell you what, bloke, knowing I couldn't lose,
yes, that's right.
I bet you a packet I can chew on my eye.
Yeah.
Well, they look at me and say, "Oh yeah, sure." We've seen blokes with tongues long enough to lick their eyebrow, but not about chewing on it. So I whip out my artificial eye and chew on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was priceless to see.
Yes, I'd reckon.
But then I say, I know I was a mongrel for taking you down. I'm sorry about that. But I tell you what, chance to get your packet back, double or nothing, I can chew on my other eye. And now I'd have them. Yeah. There's no way known. He's feeling bad that he's taking us down. So I take out my dentures and chew on my other one. Anyway, so and it genuinely has been humour. Amazingly, that God has sustained me through even going back to when I was being badly abused.
Yep.
I had dreams of known as a birdman in early life. I had a dream of this hawk that would dive bomb my abusers as they were going to the outside toilet and poop over them. Yeah. And I'd wake myself up laughing in my sleep. And it was one of the things that God used to sustain me with humour.
Yeah,
and if you look back at early Australia, in some of the outback farmers and others are doing it very hard, and even today, he still uses humour often to speak through it, to say, hey,
that's right.
You can laugh at this and you can get through it perhaps in a lighter way.
I want to ask you a question which is sort of a little bit related to what you talked about in regards to the physical aspect of it, that you've gone, well, there's the fact that you didn't have an eye and you've got a prosthetic eye has actually opened opportunities with that. I don't know how to frame this correctly, so please forgive me as I go through, but the life that you lived and all of that abuse of what occurred has seemed to be able to be used for good. Now, I don't know if it's ever fair to say, would you go and change that if you could? I don't think that's a fair question to ask. But how do you balance out, I suppose, the good that has occurred because of the life of so much pain and hurt that you had to go through? I don't think is it worth it is a fair question either. But I think you're sort of trying to grasp what I'm trying to ask here is that how do you look at that early part with now the fact that you've been able to have so much good through and because of the known experiences you've had?
Well, look, I do. In the economy of the scale of time with God, and it may seem flippant even to say this, a day, with us 1,000 years with the Lord. So it's time is immaterial, and even though, I lost a sister early in life and hardly had started to live and died, but scripturally went to heaven unquestionably, and has been living a rich and wonderful carefree life ever since, and making an enormous contribution up there, which unquestionably is made toward those down here. So that's how I would rationalise it, that there is a purpose. In fact, one of my favourite practical Bible verses is Romans 8:28, which says everything works together for good. Well, to those who love God, but even overall, in the providence of God, and this is where prayer comes in as being such a powerful element in all of this. What I discovered, not until age 25, when I was appointed as a very young bloke, relatively newly married, to be the missioner, as we were known then, or manager of the Melbourne City Mission drop-in centre in North Melbourne. An aunt I didn't know existed wrote me a letter and said, "Bill, I'm just overwhelmed." There was an article, I think in New Life News, in the Age newspaper, in fact, as well as New Life newspaper, on my appointment there and my background. And I said, "Bill, I'm just overwhelmed." Well, the realisation that you're alive. I've been praying for you since you were born. Didn't know where you were, what had happened to you.
Wow.
And so that was the first thing, just a realisation that I've been prayed. And all along the way, I've discovered this has been the case, that people behind the scenes, and I can't emphasise this enough to anyone listening, and particularly those who believe in prayer, of its importance. It sustained me incredibly. One quick instance of its power, which proves that the most important people are not the upfront people necessarily, and the Bible says a bit about that. It likens the importance of people to be like the organs of a body. It's not the seen parts that are the most important, not the head. I'm an ordained minister myself, but it's not the ordained ministers necessarily. It's those behind the scene, the prayers. Baxter Village, a Baptist retirement home, incredible group of prayers there during my prison work. And just one instance proves this. I went into a prison cell one day, and I did what I'd never ever done in prison work before, and that was get down on my knees and close my eyes. Never did it. In showering, and I always chose to shower with prisoners when I'm in the footy field with them. Go to their toilet rather than the officer's mess. Always not exposing my back deliberately.
Yes.
Or closing my eyes in prayer even if somebody asked me to pray for them in a prison cell. This time, I was compelled to ask this guy, "Look, could I pray for you?" He was telling me about immense need of his family outside. I said, "Look, can I pray? Would you mind if I said a little prayer for you?" And I got down on my knees to pray. Was about to close my eyes, and I was reminded of a story that Chuck Colson, founder of Prison Fellowship, told about a guy who'd been involved in a drug cartel and finished up in prison, drug dealing, and the cartel were concerned that he was going to give them up and name other people who were involved in the cartel. So they got somebody to deliberately commit a crime to finish up in prison alongside of this bloke. Then, worse than that, to pretend he was a Christian, enough for this guy who had become a Christian, this guy who'd been in this drug cartel, would get down on his knees and would close his eyes.
Wow.
And that all occurred, and this guy who sent in to kill him knifed him. He didn't die, fortunately. But Chuck Colson wrote about this in his book Life Sentence. And I was prompted to tell this story to this bloke in his cell. He went white as a sheet. He put his hand under the mattress, pulled out a homemade knife, and he said, "Bill, that was meant for you." He became a Christian. After that, I had a phone call from Baxter Baptist Village, and one of the prayer warriors there, very senior citizens, said, "Bill, where were you such a time?" I said, "This is where I was, and you saved my life." Your prayer, and Bev many a time has been prompted all hours of day and night to pray for me under similar circumstances, just when something has been about to occur, including about to run into a tree one night at Dalesford, and she was prompted, woken up. No, just alert to be obedient to the Lord, to pray. And these people behind the scenes have the most powerful purpose.
Yes.
Not the upfront ones who get all the plaudits, but like the important unseen organs in our body, the heart and the kidneys, etc. They're the ones that keep us alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill, there's so much we haven't talked about and we won't get to. I'm sure people will enjoy reading it as they go through your book, Driven. But final word, if somebody is going through something tough, whether it be like childhood or those that you've seen in prison or wherever it might be, and they've been hearing you talking about, all right, this God who does some change and some life work, in 30 seconds or so, what would your encouragement be to them if they're thinking, maybe I should look into something like this?
Well, do what I did. There's a verse in the book of Malachi which says, prove me, put me to the test. I did. It's like, Lord, I don't know whether you're real or not, but I'm desperate. Nothing else has worked. Prove yourself. Prove me, the Lord says in Malachi, and see if I won't pour out so much blessing there won't be room enough for you to receive. God has proved himself over and over and over, thousands of times, that he won't be offended. If you say, look, what adjectives you use even to him, and say, well, you haven't proved yourself too much so far, well, put him to the test and really take praying seriously, or get others involved, such as I've been privileged to have in my life. Say, look, please, would you pray for me and see what happens?
Yes. Bill, we wish you all the best with this book, Driven, that not only would it have been something that is a blessing to you as you put it out there for people, but that so many people would be inspired to walk that life of great purpose, which I think you can't help but do as you go through this book. And it's been wonderful to spend a bit of time with you today as well. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have a chat to Jeff Brayley, social researcher at station sponsor McCrindle. They bring data to life, and you do that for leaders in business, in organisations, churches, community groups. Jeff, what is the data that leaders should be looking at as they look into the future?
Leaders should be using multifactorial data. It's all about variety and lots of different data sets. We want to help leaders become really powerful at impacting and shaping a positive future. And so futuristic thinking is what we want to encourage people towards. You also need to be thinking generationally, understanding how society is changing, and also be practical, not just theoretical. Leaders should have a vision for the future and a plan for today.
Now, generations are working side by side so much more. Do you have any data around that?
Absolutely. A whole report, and there's a great infographic on the generations at work right now. 4 generations in Australia, from Gen Zs aged 16 to 30, who are motivated and looking for accessible and approachable leadership, all the way up to baby boomers that are looking for proximity when looking for new work. They want something close to home. And so we've got a great infographic there available for leaders to engage and motivate their teams effectively.
Jeff, I've seen this treasure trove. It really is. You're giving full access for 7 days. So how can people actually get access to this?
You can get the 50 plus infographics, 40 plus reports, courses, all on mccrindle.com. Search McCrindle Plus and you'll find that 7-day free trial. And we hope it empowers a positive future for all of society.
Jeff, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Station sponsor McCrindle, and you can get all that at mccrindle.com.